Recently, grassroots leaders in Ohio became acutely aware of the many national security threats posed by Communist China as Communist China attempts to embed itself into every aspect of America's economy, politics, society, including our schools, and sovereignty. China's major goal is to establish itself as the dominant force on the globe while establishing a new world order. This will require the takeover of the United States. Communist China is currently waging a war on America, a war they plan on winning. It is a war where the weapons do not have physical bullets, but it's a war nonetheless. If America is to survive this war, we must first arm ourselves with knowledge so we may mobilize our forces to push back against this silent invasion. We must never forget America was founded on freedom and that Communist China was founded on the suppression of freedom. These two ideologies cannot coexist. We have an important decision to make, or it will be made for us by Communist China. Keep America for Americans is an all-volunteer, grassroots activist group that was formed to deliver important information to Ohioans about the threat China poses to our state. They developed a series of weekly lessons, 10 of them, that they recently published on the Keep America for Americans website. Each provides a short lesson on the many strategies China is using to undermine America's power at home and abroad, while enriching its own homeland. Readers were also guided towards action items to help reduce China's influence in the state of Ohio. We've decided to make videos and podcasts of these lessons to reach a broader audience. All credit goes to the Keep America for Americans team. They developed every word of this video. We're just helping amplify their work. Using that work allows us to tell you with certainty this is the first video of this special video series called China's Silent War on America. This first episode of the series is titled China's Undermining of America's National Security. China is currently undermining America's national security. It is important for viewers to understand national security is a broad term and has many definitions. For purposes of this series, we will define national security as all the actions a country takes to protect itself from its enemies. This includes not only the military, but also the protection of the country's values and beliefs. National security is the way a country keeps itself safe from harm and maintains its sovereignty and beliefs. For a country to have strong national security, it must not just be strong and united in its values and beliefs within its borders. It must also have strategic alliances with other like-minded countries outside of its borders and have a strong military to support these alliances. If a country is lacking in either category, it is vulnerable to enemies. America is vulnerable, and China is intentionally contributing to these vulnerabilities, both inside of America and abroad. China knows it must weaken America if it is to become the dominant global power. Next, you'll see an excellent 9-minute video clip that gives you a concise overview of just how serious the threat of China is within the borders of America.
Mr. Ray, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Gallagher, Ranking Member Krishnamurthy, and to the members of the Select Committee for inviting me here to testify today to discuss the FBI's ongoing efforts to protect our nation from actions taken by the Chinese government that threaten American safety and prosperity. Before I go on, I do want to make very clear that my comments today are not about the Chinese people, and certainly not about Chinese Americans who contribute much to our country and are frankly often the victims of Chinese Communist Party aggression themselves. Rather, when I talk about the threat posed by China, I mean the government of China, in particular led by the CCP. The CCP's dangerous actions, China's multi-pronged assault on our national and economic security, make it the defining threat of our generation. Now, when I described the CCP as a threat to American safety a moment ago, I meant that quite literally. There has been far too little public focus on the fact that PRC hackers are targeting our critical infrastructure, our water treatment plants, our electrical grid, our oil and natural gas pipelines, our transportation systems, and the risk that poses to every American requires our attention now. China's hackers are positioning on American infrastructure in preparation to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens and communities if and when China decides the time has come to strike. They're not focused just on political and military targets. We can see from where they position themselves across civilian infrastructure that low blows aren't just a possibility in the event of a conflict. Low blows against civilians are part of China's plan. But the PRC's cyber onslaught goes way beyond pre-positioning for future conflict. Today, and literally every day, they're actively attacking our economic security, engaging in wholesale theft of our innovation and our personal and corporate data. Nor is cyber the only PRC threat we face. The PRC cyber threat is made vastly more dangerous by the way they knit cyber into a whole-of-government campaign against us. They recruit human sources to target our businesses, using insiders to steal the same kinds of innovation and data that their hackers are targeting, while also engaging in corporate deception, hiding Beijing's hand in transactions, joint ventures, and investments to do the same. And they don't just hit our security and economy, they target our freedoms, reaching inside our borders across America to silence, coerce, and threaten some of our citizens and residents. I do not want those watching today to think we can't protect ourselves. But I do want the American people to know that we cannot afford to sleep on this danger. As a government and a society, we've got to remain vigilant and actively defend against the threat that Beijing poses. Otherwise, China has shown it will make us pay. Thank you, and look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your service. There is a Chinese company building an electric vehicle battery plant in my district. As part of the project, they plan to bring 20 to 50 Chinese nationals to Michigan. What do you feel are the odds of those nationals may engage in espionage for the CCP while they're in the United States? I know you've both been involved in looking at these kinds of things. Secretary Pompeo, you were issuing work visas to Chinese nationals as part of the State Department. I wondered if you'd both comment on that.
Look, I don't think there's any question that they're going to take advantage of that situation, and I think we have to be very vigilant about what the hell's going on. That's just the way they operate. They'll establish a manufacturing unit. They'll establish whatever they can, and then they will use that for their own intelligence purposes. They will use that for their own economic purposes. They'll use it to be able to gain the kind of advantages that they want that are counter, frankly, to the interests of the United States. I think it is very important in those situations to make sure that that the United States and that our intelligence capabilities are being used to make sure that we know what they are doing that could hurt the United States.
I think it is worse than the fact that they will engage in espionage. I think that's just top of the list. They will use this in ways that will leverage Chinese advantage. These plants are deeply dangerous to our national security and ought not be built.
Thank you.
Secretary Pompeo, you notably warned our nation's governors about not getting too entwined and entangled with the Chinese Communist Party, as many of them did. As Washington becomes more aware of the China threat, the CCP has targeted many of our state's governors. This morning, the Washington Post published a story about the CCP's United Front efforts amping up their engagement with our nation's mayors, including the mayor of Carmel, Indiana, in my state, the former mayor, he just left office, who went on lavish trips to China and engaged at a high level with Chinese officials in their country. Why should our nation's mayors stray away from these types of entanglements with the sister cities projects and other CCP United Front efforts?
You know, Congressman Banks, it's in some ways parallel to what we were talking about in Africa. Right, the Chinese Communist Party will always show up at people's doors with things that feel good. The remarks I made to the National Governors Association, I had to run through a State Department roadblock to make those remarks. It was hard for even the State Department to see this threat, not just at the federal level, but this was to a series of governors. And I now remind people, the Chinese Communist Party is showing up at school board meetings. They're showing up at city council meetings and county commission meetings all across America. In your state, Chairman Gallagher, in Wisconsin, they made a hard play for your state legislative body. They are determined to propagate their efforts. They want to make friends so that when they're confronted, they can turn to their friends and say, we're not such bad guys after all. The Chinese Communist Party is truly evil. They will work at every level of government. They will work against our private sector as well. They'll show up at PTA meetings if that's what it takes. This is an effort at every level for the Chinese Communist Party to have a capacity to influence our government. Can you expand on why the
sister cities program is so dangerous?
When the Chinese Communist Party shows up at your school and offers a free swing set, it is not because they care about the health of your children. That's maybe the simplest way to articulate sister cities programs and the Confucius Institutes and all of these United Front efforts inside of our country. They may show up and give you some temporary lift, but in the end, it is about them, not about us.
Mr. Connor.
This video seemed to list all the ways China could possibly be influencing America, although this list is incomplete. We suggest viewers read this 3-minute article to see how Communist China has also embedded itself into many of our federal agencies, leaving Americans at the mercy of Communist China's many nefarious schemes. A link to it, as well as anything else referenced in this video, is shown in the show notes, or goodies as we call them on social media. This video is brought to you by the Grassroots Freedom Initiative, or GFI for short. If you're not already on our email and text lists, be sure to join our network of thousands of Ohioans. It's easy, free, and we won't ask you for money. Visit GFIOhio.com and click the Join Us button in the upper right-hand corner of any page, or text the letters GFI to 66866 and follow the prompts. And please be sure to find and follow us on YouTube and Rumble. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give us a like to be made aware when we post new content. Thanks for watching. Please remember to stay informed and get engaged.